Hello everybody, Venom here, and welcome to another episode of reacting to some behind the scenes stuff for Halo 4. Today we got this video titled Making Halo 4 Return of the Forerunners. So that sounds pretty interesting. Without any further ado guys, let's just dive right in.
Putting aside our sorrow, we renewed our faith in the prophecy that other rings would be found, and see how our faith has been rewarded.
The Covenant used to be the main threat, and it was a MacGuffin in the original Halo series because the real threat was the Forerunner legacy and the Flood itself.
Yeah, definitely.
The Forerunners have been the source of so much mystery throughout the Halo franchise. It was something that was just fascinating to us.
So far, it's been a lot of stumbling into their belongings. Like we found Halos. And now we found something more. We found the Prometheans.
There's a degree of animalistic fierceness that maybe you didn't see in previous games.
The conditions and the context are what pit a hero and antagonist against each other.
For this game, we're going to get to see a lot of complexity to their civilization.
From their worldview, what they're doing has to make sense.
Trying to figure out ways to tell that story without interfering with the shooting aspect of it has been a really challenging thing.
We've gotten glimpses of this Forerunner presence that was kind of always there, open as to whether it would ever erupt. And it did.
We're trying to really take game systems and manipulate them and give them emotional coloring and context.
We wanted to create something that could stand alone and be an enemy that is just as challenging, just as engaging as the Covenant has been in the past for Halo.
A lot of that initial discussion was around if you had this incredibly evolved race and they were well beyond humanity, the Covenant, what would that look like?
I guess they would look like the Prometheans.
The design process for the Prometheans was intriguing, exciting, and then long and painful process. I think just because everyone was so invested in what they wanted out of them.
How do you imply something strong, something vertical, something different? And how could we actually have a global logical language out of that Forerunner philosophy?
Anybody?
Yeah, that's true because like 343 had a lot to go up against here because players still went into Forerunner stuff before, right? There was already some art that was linked to the Forerunner, so you couldn't come up with like an entirely new architectural set and everything. You can tweak it a bit, but you know, and they did, but you still had some reference point that you needed to stay inside of, you know? And the Prometheans are really interesting. Yeah, I can't wait to see what they're going to talk about because like the Prometheans is, I think, the thing I really dislike the most about Halo 4 in general. Just fighting them is not that fun. I mean, the Knights here, and it's all because of their teleportation thing. The Watchers, I actually adore them. They made me think of the buggers because like they can use the verticality of the levels, they can come from unexpected angles and all that stuff. So in that vein, they're really missing out of the buggers, but they are used more often. So I feel like the Watchers are really cool. The Crawlers are really cool. The Watchers are pretty interesting too because they have some synergies with the other archetypes, right? But yeah, the Knight's only problem, man, is the teleportation. It's so annoying. It's so annoying.
Who's played Halo goes, okay, Forerunners is the silvery angular stuff with blue lights across it.
Yeah.
That's really the language kind of in a nutshell. For us, it was important to break that, but still find kind of like a mathematical organization.
We had to do a very clear separation of style, shapes, colors, right from the start.
I think the Knight's been through almost like 15 plus iterations of geometry.
This sheet is like very traditional way of doing brainstorming. You just do silhouettes and then we take it and iterate some more and more and more.
We didn't want them to look like monsters because they're not monsters.
We had a version that looked very demon-y.
These things on his back, they would go together and they would like flare out when the player was being spotted.
We didn't want the Prometheans to look like robots because they're not robots.
A version that looked very thin.
They do look like robots though. I don't know. They look entirely like robots to me. I don't know. They're made out of metal. I guess you learn at the end that the composer turns humans into the Prometheans, right? But Nope, still looks very robotic to me.
And spindly.
We would see one, it's like, you know, that one looks cool, but it really doesn't convey commander of the battlefield.
We had other stuff where they could clamp on and have these big, hulking, massive armors on top of them that would really change the variant look.
For us, it was important to get it into something that people could relate to, which I think is always going to be a challenge when trying to take the Forerunner language and create a character.
Making sure that his head stood out, that you could see it, that players had the ability to headshot it.
I actually don't hate their visuals,
they're able to
right?
bring these guys alive and make it feel believable and plausible and still be very fast and lethal.
Locomotion didn't look heavy enough at one point, so we scrapped everything and did it all again. The knight's like 12 feet tall, so if it doesn't feel heavy and menacing as it's walking around and doesn't intimidate the player, then we're not doing our job. There were not a lot of real-life elements that we could take.
There are joints there, some of them are not physically connected. They're holed up with the space in between them, which is some of the features that the architecture has, which is big, massive buildings like floating, defying gravity.
Oh, true. That I did not pick up on that, and that is very cool. Nice. Very nice.
We wanted to keep some of that mystery and kind of the unknown in the characters as well.
We even have the little micro driver arms in here, and then all the way to where we turn these layers off. We have the glowing skull.
We thought it would be more of an impact if it's like a sarcophagus. It opens up and it's showing all this aggression.
There's
That's
certain
neat.
ways to approach fighting an elite with a group of grunts, and really what we wanted to do was change that up.
The Covenant are tried and true. You know what you're going to get out of a grunt. You know what you're going to get from a jackal with his shield. The toughness of elites. Here are the brand new hooks to the sandbox.
Prometheans are made up of the Knights, the Watchers, and the Crawlers.
One of the big focuses for us in the design of the Forerunners was to have these different enemy classes that would be able to work together.
Having this dissection so that when the player went into combat, he's sort of tactically evaluating which order to take guys out.
They don't.
Yes, that I will say, they did that very well. I like the synergy that the enemies have together. And that, from a design standpoint, is always really fun because depending on the actions that the enemies take and depending also on the layout and the actual archetypes of enemies that you have, you will be changing priorities depending on the situation, right? If you see a Promethean knight starting to build a Watcher, you're going to focus on him. If you see a Watcher trying to buff one of the other archetypes, you're going to focus on him. And then you have the Crawlers that you can basically, like, you know, kill at the beginning to remove a lot of the threats quickly because they are so weak. But yeah, that is very interesting though. And I like that part. It's really the teleportation thing that really ruins a lot of the fun that you can have with those enemies. Like, some of you guys mentioned that they changed that up a bit in Halo 5. I can't wait to see, man, because the Knights, they have potential, right? They have potential. But that one thing is so annoying that it overshadows a lot of the good stuff that they implemented in the game.
Act independently of each other. You put any combination of them together, and the strategy you need to engage with them is really different.
There are a variety of knight classes, and each one of them is progressively more powerful.
Okay, see, that is something that I don't like very much. I noticed while playing that some archetypes were different. Like the knights, some of them like add different things, but look at them. They all look the same. And in the madness of gameplay, like their silhouette is all the same, right? Like if you put the background white and you just filled all these models with a black color, like the silhouette will still be like, you know, 2 legs and that huge bump. 2 legs, that huge bump, some flames at the top, whatever. 2 legs, that huge bump, a circle at the front. It's not really that apparent. It's an FX too. And you know, the last one, 2 legs, a huge bump. So there's, I don't know, it lacks some more. Yeah, there's not enough variation to the silhouette, and silhouettes are very important because you can be like, didn't you notice that he had like a shotgun in his arm instead of like an assault rifle? No, I did not. In combat, like you cannot really see that stuff, right? So yeah, I don't know. They probably add limits on the number of really different looking archetypes that they could do because that is basically variations of the same enemy. Because there is a way to keep a lot of the Prometheans design, but tweak them to make them look more like what they should be doing. Like the first one could easily be the one with a scatter shot, right? Like a big bulky thing that rushes you, attacks you. All right, that makes sense. For the second one, maybe you want like an archetype who will attack you with an energy sword or something. So maybe you reduce a bit the size of his, backplate thingy so that it's a bit visually smaller. So the player is going to be like, oh, that archetype is probably faster. He's going to rush me as a sword. Makes sense. And then if you have one with a light rifle, maybe you just remove that big lump on the back entirely, right? Like, yeah, like that version of the knights to me is so bulky that any variation that you will do on it is kind of gonna be lost in gameplay, in motion and everything, right? I don't know.
But your base knight actually starts just a little bit more powerful than an elite.
But in addition to that, we wanted the knight to have his own set of traits and abilities.
There's all kinds of these special features of each one of these characters that players haven't played in a Halo game before.
You think about basic combat and counter design, a lot of the challenges designers face is how to introduce enemies.
What would a Promethean do if it could bend time, space, form, matter?
Knights can phase in out of anywhere.
He's able to go where he needs to at any time, which is something the Covenant can't do.
Heads up!
Crawlers can walk.
And see, the teleportation also, like, I focus heavily on that, right? Like, I've been talking about it. I've been saying how much I dislike it a lot and everything. It's because, like, they never really used it in a way that surprised me and made me threaten, aside from the ones that rush you, right? But there's never a moment in which, like, a Promethean teleported somewhere and I was like, oh my god, what a good move. I was always like, ugh. Like, I don't know.
Walk on walls, walk on ceilings.
Yeah, those are awesome though.
First, crawlers will come rushing at you and try and like melee the player to get more aggressive.
These certainly slot into that grunt style combatant. And so there was certainly a want to make sure that we can get a lot of them on screen.
If you let too many of them get together, they become a really formidable force. One-off, super fun to take out all together. It's like a
What's that animation though?
Its mandibles, when it screams, will actually separate and float around in the air while it's howling. Animation added so much fresh behavior to this character. It's very exciting.
The Watcher is definitely a support class.
Yeah.
One of the things we wanted to do with the Forerunner characters was constantly have them mix up their tactics and make the player react to it.
The Watcher is able to regenerate knights.
That's cool.
One of the things we needed to do
Love the
when the Watcher
synergy.
design was coming along was make sure that the Watcher would actually fit inside of the Knight. That bursts out and swap to the actual Watcher asset.
Nice.
The Watchers are aware if a Knight's damaged, they'll protect them, they'll catch grenades, so they kind of coordinate their efforts.
The Prometheans feel like the most advanced of the bunch. They're able to bring all of their technology and wisdom to the battlefield.
The gameplay footage there shows a lot of the Promethean Knights using a hard light shield. I've never seen that in the game. Was that cut? Am I crazy? Because I've never seen that. Right?
With new enemy class comes new weapon class.
We literally concepted probably 200 weapons for this game before we settled on the half a dozen that went in.
Okay, before they talk about that, that's a big letdown because basically what they did is just a reskin of human weapons, right? Shotgun, sniper rifle, rocket launcher. Like, it's all weapons. Like, there's no surprise there. Absolutely none. If you remove the Promethean weapons from the game and you just let the player, use the Covenant weapons and the human weapons, functionality-wise, it's the same. There's nothing new added, really. And that I don't like.
It's kind of like you've got that balance between humans' model of what a weapon's like and the desire to want to try and make something crazy and futuristic.
We tried coming up with this perfect mix of stuff that was still relatable.
Oh, what's that?
Still identify a weapon as a rifle or a shotgun or a submachine gun, even though they're almost magical. The Forerunner scout.
Yeah, but you lose a lot of the... Like, I understand their point, right? They want to make the weapon feel believable, and also, like, if you pick it up, you know what it is. But that kind of defeats the whole purpose of having new weapons from the get-go, right? Because if you take a look at, like, the arsenal that the players can have in a Halo, right? You have all the human weapons and all the Covenant weapons. If you want to add something to that, you need to add something unique and kind of like out of the box a bit, right? Because if you're trying to make like an SMG or something, it already exists. It's already in there. Why are you even bothering, right?
Shot was probably the first one where we really nailed the design on it. Everybody loves the hinge action shotgun, so we tried doing something like that so that the reload animation would be to cock it up and the front half would
yeah, like a
together.
shotgun.
Every time you pick up a Forerunner weapon, it forms in your hand.
So that sort of kicked up.
That's cool, but also there's something that is annoying with that, is that every time that happens, especially for the light rifle, it hides your view completely just to show that animation. The first time you pick it up, it's cool, but at the end of the game, when it happens, you're like, get the fuck away from me. Like, I need to shoot knights, and they're teleporting and stuff, right? So, like, it's basically known weapons with a fresh new coat of paint and some cool animations.
Off the component of having these guns form around the player.
So there's that moment of like, oh, what is this gun? What does it do? And then when it comes into shape, it's kind of immediately identifiable.
What makes the Forerunner weapons distinct is that usually they have dual purpose. So for instance, from the bolt pistol, you can charge it up and have something that's equivalent to almost like a shotgun blast.
That's cool though.
In the case of the light rifle,
that's cool because that adds options for the player, right? You don't just have a pistol. Now, if you have an enemy that's really close to you, you can also use it as a very short range shotgun. That is amazing. It doesn't really justify the weapon itself though, you know, like, nah.
We actually experimented with doing dual firing modes. We tried to make it so that it was the best of both worlds with a BR and a DMR.
It works like the battle rifle when you're not scoped. That has a little spread, has a 3-shot burst, and it works like the DMR when you are scoped. So it's like a mini sniper rifle in a way.
It actually changes to a different firing mode where the projectiles are stronger.
One of the big things that we really focused on for them was making sure that the weapon doesn't just feel like a chunk of metal, but that it actually has glowing energy that's flowing through the gun, going down the barrel, so that everything is very full of life. The moment where all the Promethean effects really started to click the most was when we started showing the dissolve whenever you kill a knight. That was really when we started to feel, yes, this is something cool, this is something unique, and something that we haven't really seen before.
The dissolve effect is very cool.
Prototype of the Knight E-Res. As the sphere expands, you see the particles are birthed, and everything in the red region you see will be the crack and the erode.
When you shoot and kill the knight, the actual point on the body where you did the damage is where the dissolve starts.
So if you shoot from his foot, he will de-res from the point of his foot up.
That's neat.
The end result, when
I really like that.
They dissolve, proving that the technology works.
Very cool.
I look at the changes that we're making, and it really feels like we're making a sequel to Halo 3. And that's exactly what we're setting out to do.
We have the Covenant from previous games. We have the UNSC. We had all these things to take from, like, all right, we can make a new take on this, but we had zero information to some of this Forerunner stuff.
We're not just on a Halo, we're on a whole planet now. We're not just threatening one corner of the galaxy, we're threatening everything.
We're listening to the fan feedback. We're incrementally evolving different aspects of the game design, but there's nothing really revolutionary. And I think that's important, because I think really good design is evolutionary, not revolutionary.
What?
And I think at some points we got in our heads with this
game. What do you mean with that?
I don't think that's what people want. They may think they want that, but what they really want is something that speaks to the things that they love, but then provides them with something new.
I don't know about that quote, guys. I think I know what he meant. Okay, I think I know what he meant, but I don't know. Like I don't know. The weapons are not evolutionary to me. They're just a reskin. The actual enemies, it's kind of like an evolution in a sense because there are synergies between them, and that's very cool. So I get it, but I don't know. Like the way he phrased it, kind of like makes it sound like you don't want to make too much. Like you don't want to go too crazy, but yeah, bro, let's go. Let's go too crazy. You know, why not? Why not, right? I don't want to spend too much time on that quote because like he did not explain it much more than that, because it's just kind of like a sentence, and like we could go deeper into that sentence and figure out exactly what he meant there and everything, but unfortunately the video doesn't provide that, so I cannot go into detail, right? I never want to speak too negatively about, you know, design decisions and all that stuff, because I know how difficult it is to make a game, right? And of course, guys, when I sit here and like comment on stuff, like it's very easy to comment and to be negative about stuff. It's really hard to come up with that stuff in the first place, right? Like it's hard, okay? It is hard. So always take into consideration when I'm critiquing stuff and design and everything that ultimately, like, I don't know. I just don't want to come across as the guy who criticizes a lot for nothing, you know, like whatever. Yes, so that's going to be all for today's episode, guys. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'm going to see you in the next episode. Have a good one.